Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back for our third and final lecture lesson on now unit number 8.00. Up until now, of course, we've covered 5.00 and all the objectives that fell under it, contained under inventors, working drawings, and with that unit coverage, we were able to, of course, wrap up bills of material, ballooning, and coming away with working drawings from models that we had created of our designs to this point. Now, from there, we went into the manufacturing documentation that served as a supplemental unit, and now we're going to wrap up our third unit that's 8.00 in your curriculum and is supported by three objectives. One, we're going to basically start to further define, I should say, our digital portfolio, explain a little bit about the concept behind it as well, at least how it affects us in this class. We're going to talk about the procedures required to flush out your website, and by the time you get to your website, as a matter of fact, all the content will have been developed, and at that point it's just a matter of importing it, and we'll talk a little bit about website development, and then finally wrap up with the process of rounding out our digital portfolio with that of a resume. I pulled this file up as an introductory point, even though it doesn't directly impact this unit, because I wanted to show you what I envision as far as all of our project phases as a whole in an outline format. I know that this is a massive project when you consider the sketch all the way through to the presentation, and we're basically covering the bulk of it with our current unit coverage. But remember that it all originated with a sketch, and your sketch work was phenomenal. Some of us took to it by hand on a manual drafting board. Others took right to AutoCAD. There was no wrong answer there, but it did require something in the way of a scanned document in the end, if you did it by hand. And you know what I'm trying to reinforce there is the fact that anything and everything pertaining to this project has to be digitized and rolled into what's ultimately going to become your personal design portfolio. Then of course, phase two, design phase, manufacturing phase, website development, presentation. I like to look at it as a five-pronged approach. So I just thought I'd throw this out there. We're going to get into the, again, the electronic portfolio portion of this unit coverage today. And this reference file will be posted to your Google Classroom assignment on the honors project as a whole, as something that you can use as like a checkbox. And we'll go over this a little bit more one-on-one or one-on-two with your design teams as we move through this process, okay? So I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to go directly to my starting point, and that would be my sample Wix site. I like to think that we can go there and show you kind of like what I'm looking for in the way of a reference site for your development, ultimately in the end, insofar as your honors project is concerned. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up now. And if you notice, this is a website that some of you have seen already because it has included in it some classroom videos pertaining to our various classes in the program here. But it also has publications, contact information, and so forth. This is one example of how you could go about creating your headers, and representing your honors project. A lot of people like this approach because at the end of the day, you have responsibilities for manufacturing, design, and sketch material. Why not just basically have those serve up as page headers. And then from there, you can click on each title and it'll bring you to a page that's dedicated towards each of those phases that you're responsible for on this project. This is just my site. I used it through Wix. Wix is one of several that you can use, but I thought that this would be, and this reference site is provided to you in the form of a link in Google Classroom. And I like to use references. It's the best way to get the point across, and we've been doing that all along in this class, and this is just, you know, an extension of that very thought process. Now, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to creating a website, but I can promise you this, that when you reach the point, and unlike the manufacturing and the design agendas, you do not need to concern yourself with running things concurrently or modifying your design for sake of your manufacturing where it pertains to the website development. The website development, it does stand alone. It's only going to come into play once everything else up to that point is complete. So all of your sketch work, design work, and manufacturing work will have been completed by the time you hit this point. There are a number of options you can go with here. You can go Wix, you can go Weebly, you can go Google Sites. I can only speak for Google Sites and Wix because I've used them, and promising you that once we get that far, there's very little content-driven work that's required here, other than maybe some text, body information that's required. By and large, you're going to be just importing a lot of the information that you've already created. Rendered images of your design, working drawings of your design, manufacturing docs, all of those deliverables will be fed into this website. To include two additional items that up until now we haven't really discussed. They are the letter of intent and the resume. A letter of intent is always a good thing to have, and I'm going to pull it up now just to formally introduce your product design portfolio to your would-be customer, or in your likely case, maybe a would-be employer. And the way we're going to do that is with a template file that looks kind of like this. I know that you're working in teams, and I've assigned you titles: design engineer, manufacturing engineer, and you'd already used this template to define your team name and your roles. First, last name, and then a text body in below the salutation that speaks to exactly what it is that you're going to deliver in the form of your design that stands alone from all the rest. Because this is a competition in effect, right? I mean, much like anything in the workplace environment, once you graduate high school and move on to one career or another, you are going to be in competition, like it or not. It's that competitive a landscape out there. So while you might not outwardly be competing with people in-house, you will be, by way of your presentation and in your professional acumen, you will be on a daily basis presenting yourself in a way in which the employer will view you as someone who can sustain with the company, or someone, you know, who maybe cannot. And by putting your best foot forward, you're also having to be assertive in making sure that the employer knows your worth. And one of the ways you can do that is with an electronic portfolio. I like to think that the same letter of intent template that you use to introduce your project can be one that you use now to introduce it to a customer, a would-be buyer, customer, in making the pitch to buy your design. I can't emphasize it enough. You have to be your own advocate. You have to really promote yourself at this next level, because in order for you to compete with the other candidates out there for the optimum jobs, you have to be able to sell yourself. One of the best ways to do that is through your work, of course, but also in self-promotion. So this is a nice way to introduce not a resume per se, just yet, but the entirety of your portfolio. And in many cases, employers want to see a digitized portfolio. The traditional resume can hold too, but it needs to be included in your website. And we're going to talk about that next. So this is very basic, and I just wanted to introduce it to you once again. The resume template, there are people who are employed simply to help others basically generate effective resumes. It's a very subjective line of work, however, and all I can tell you is that at the end of the day, employers want it short and simple, and they want it filled with relevant information, okay? I like this as just a starting point. I like to think that this is a good starting point resume template to work with. It's bold, it jumps out at you, it's got links, and it speaks to where you're at in your career, which is obviously very early on. And what I like most about it is take a look at extracurricular activities and honors and achievements. Even though you may think, well, I'm very early on in this process and I don't have a whole lot to offer in the way of a resume. Well, yes, you do. The fact of the matter is, while you may not have a long established work history, you do have skills that are relevant to the eventual workplace environment, and you've got likely volunteer work experience, as well as extracurricular activities and honors and achievements. I wanted to point out this area just for sake of an extension of your electronic portfolio. Up until now, you've been scanning all your work in, you've been bringing in your CAD data and manufacturing docs. Everything has been application driven to this point. And that's a great body of work that's going to feed this website. Well, what you also have to understand is that you sell yourself not only through a website and through a resume, but also through social media. So these are links that you can populate with your LinkedIn URL if you eventually get one. And I'll field questions on that. I've spent a great deal of time in there. LinkedIn is kind of like a Facebook profile, only it's strictly business related as opposed to social. Twitter, everybody knows what that is, and then your email and telephone. These are essentials, I believe, in effectively marketing yourself for a job opportunity. But again, much like the LinkedIn URL, you need to make sure the Twitter handle is separate from whatever personal Twitter account you may have. And you can have multiple accounts, of course, as you know. But even if the extent of your education right now is actually high, and this is the body of work that makes up your resume, this is fine. You're going to come out of this class with certificates. You're going to come out of it with honors, and you want to list that here. Each and every item that speaks to leadership resoundingly impacts employers or would-be employers. So I really want you to fill this out in its entirety and include this in your electronic portfolio and pop it into your website along with all the other content, okay? So that would take you through our last unit coverage, and we will talk about the presentation once we get there, but basically the big difference between this and many other classes may be the fact that you're not going to be presenting off of a PowerPoint. You're going to be presenting off of content that's been imported into a website. And I hope you enjoy this experience. And I really think that you should take a relaxed approach to the presentation, because remember, you're not up there standing on your own. You're going to be up there with a partner, and I'll be looking carefully at how you play off one another and handing off different sections of the presentation once it's underway. Are there any questions related to this material? Again, not real heavy lifting involved here, but this is where it all, I should say, comes together, and I think it's going to be very important. As much as anything, I think this is as important as it gets, only because there are a lot of people out there that can design and build and manufacture. They may even do it at a very high level, but it's soft skills and it's the ability to sell oneself and sell one's character that really will ring true with employers and really place you above the rest of the pack. So keep that in mind at all times. And Jana and Kyle, I know you wanted to talk specifically to the personal and cultural assets that you might be able to bring to your resume and how you might import that. So stay after class and we'll talk about that, because yes, you can put your own personal and cultural brand on this resume or this portfolio at large, and do it in such a way where it complements the body of work that you're presenting to this point in a very, very profound way. Okay, are there any questions at this time? All right, well, you've been an outstanding group, and I'll start to immediately upon the completion of this recording, work my way around and catch up with you on your projects. Thank you very much. Talk to you guys later. Thanks.